Be winding down. Oh yeah, we're recording. Hard to believe we'll be winding down the year before you know it. Be on to 2022. I want to welcome any first-time visitors or new members. Anyone want to say hello?
Looks like everybody we know.
Okay. Let's see. How the next question we always ask in the beginning of the meeting is, anybody been diving lately? Come on, Linda, I know has been diving. Like
Linda's
every
been
3 nights a
diving, but
week.
Javan raised her hand.
Oh, Javon, you go to
Yeah.
the flower gardens?
Yeah, we went to the
Yes, we
flower
went flower
gardens.
gardens.
How was it?
Very full of current, very nice. Want to go back?
It was interesting. We had really ripping surface currents, and when we got down about 20 or 30 feet, it calmed down. But as soon as you got back up and tried to get on the boat, it was trying to push you away.
Well, I'm glad y'all made it on the boat.
Yeah, we were down there
Absolutely.
with Jesse and Pee Wee and Javan and Brian Satoff, and we had a good time.
And how was the weather, seas wise?
It was okay. 4 feet, I think Jesse said.
That's not real good. Not for that
It's
long.
not good. Yeah, well, 2 feet is too much for you, David.
No, I just don't like it when it's really rough. I've been out there before when it was pretty choppy, and I've been out there when it was totally flat. And after it was totally flat, I'm like, I never need to come back because it's never going to get better than this.
So rare, yeah.
Yeah. When you had those flat, it was coral spawn trip, and it was totally flat the whole time out there. And I was like, this best is ever going to be right here.
Well, when we went out with Jesse on the Good Vibrations one time, all the way out, it was like a roller coaster, and the rollers were coming in from the side, and so the
Oh,
boat
that
was
sucks.
doing this.
That's
And
not
I was
good.
trying to get sleep, and I was just getting rolled out of the bed all the time.
Yeah, that's not fun.
And then when we got out there the next day, it was like glass, total, just nothing. You could
Well, that's good.
shave in it.
I actually went to Cozumel early August, I guess, for a week and had a good time. It was interesting that it seemed like the dive sites were pretty crowded. There were a lot of dive boats out there, but if you went into town, you would hardly see any tourists. You know, it's very quiet in town. So I guess there's quite a bit of divers there, but the town's missing all the cruise ship passengers and all the vacationers and stuff. So that's, I'm assuming, why it seemed so empty in town. But we had a good time, you know, normal Cozumel stuff. The weather was nice for us, and then like a day or two after we left, that Hurricane Grace hit down there, so we just kind of barely missed it, but we were lucky that we didn't have to change our plans. So that was good. Anybody else been diving?
How's the diving up in Colorado, Craig and Betsy?
Well, we did go swimming in the Adriatic Sea and the Mediterranean, but we had no scuba gear. So
So you got wet though.
we looked under.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did you at least have goggles or a mask or something? You did look under.
I had my goggles.
That's good.
The water
How was it up in Alaska, Debbie?
Cold. It was highs of the 60s and then lower at night. Really nice. The bears were fishing. They weren't doing much catching, but they were fishing.
Yeah, you had a lot of awesome bear photos on Facebook. I need to get up there and see those grizzlies, the brown bears.
Yeah.
saw a
Coastal
moose in our
browns.
front yard.
What's that?
We saw a moose in our backyard in
Oh,
Colorado.
Colorado?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I saw that.
Good. Good.
Up close. Yeah, they actually came right up and,
Too close.
Yeah, they'll kill you.
Said that the female was came close and the male was down back in the background, I think, right?
the one I filmed, yeah, but Betsy saw them one morning when I wasn't up yet. And so I think she may have
They
seen
got a
them.
lot closer. They scared me, actually.
Yeah, they're big. Okay, so maybe in an effort to fix the lack of diving, maybe Russell's going to fill us in on anything about the British Virgin Islands trip. Nothing new?
Nothing really new. There's still some quarantines out there. I'm going to be getting in contact with them probably in another week to find out what they think is going to be going on by next spring. Because, you know, the USVI has now got a warning from the federal government about don't go there, even though they're wide open or were wide open. I think part of it was due to the cruise ships calling, which they do not call in the BVI yet.
Okay.
And so I'll have another report for everybody in October though, and update everything.
Do you have firm dates on that yet?
Yeah, it's still supposed to be what, the 14th through the 21st. I didn't look it up again, but I think that's when it is, of May, 14th to 21st of May. And I'm going to get another letter out after I talk to AJ at Dive BVI, and I hope to talk to her. I might talk to her this week, just see. So, but I've been keeping up with what's going on, and not a whole lot's changed.
I
Yeah,
got
A
it.
lot of places are like that right now, but it's hard to believe this is still going on. So much time has passed since it started.
So one little deal, we've been looking at trying to reschedule in Indonesia, the 2 trips we've been keep putting back. And if you look at the statistics, Indonesia, the cases have just gone almost down to 0. So
Wow.
I don't know, you know, I sent some emails to operators out there, like, do you have any, you know, inside information? And they said, no, we don't know anything still. So I don't know. But it seems like Delta has like kind of run its course there, and it's just, the peak is totally over with. So
That's interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. I haven't looked at Indonesia, but I did look at the Philippines like last week, and their case numbers are higher than they've ever been.
They're
So,
still closed, aren't they?
Yeah, both Indonesia and Philippines closed. Most
Yeah.
places are.
The numbers in Egypt don't look so bad.
They're
They
open.
were pretty low.
Good news.
We'll see. All right, let's see. Betsy, you want to say anything about the video contest? Remind everybody the deadline, it's rapidly approaching.
Yes, the deadline is rapidly approaching, midnight, October 1st. So you guys get your films in, up to 5 minutes, 2 gigabyte limit, October 1st.
Not that I'm a last minute guy, but does that mean October 1st at 11:59 or October 1st at 12:01? You know?
Well, I know, David, for you, we'll do 12:01, okay?
Okay.
Hey,
I don't know
Dan,
when you have a video, since I haven't been making videos very long, like at all. When do you reach the point where you say, okay, it's enough, is enough? Because every time I watch it, I go back and say, oh, I gotta change that, or oh, I gotta change this, and it's like sucking the life out of me.
like never.
Yeah,
You never say
Okay.
enough.
Okay, September 29th.
that
September 29th.
always happens.
Okay,
You just
well,
get to the point where you can't stand it anymore, and
that's
that's
about where I
when you
am. Yeah, I'm about to that point.
Say, Dennis,
Yeah, I just redid my my sand video completely for next year's because I had errors in it and I wasn't happy with the narration. Eventually,
is that the one
What's
you've
that?
already submitted? Is that the one you've already submitted?
yeah, that's the re-envisioned one.
Well,
That I just submitted.
I'm telling you, that was really technically very good.
Well,
I can't
that was
say
part of what I'm trying to do.
can't say much for
I
the
think-
narration, but the video was very good.
That guy talking, what a moron.
Narration's a funny thing because you can think it sounds great and then you revisit it maybe a day later and your opinion has completely changed, you know?
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Well-
You keep watching it and you keep finding flaws.
Yeah. All it takes is a little bit of time. Then when you go back to it, you feel like you need to change it again.
Yeah.
I just finished up my 2-minute short video for the film festival. It's called Eat. We'll see how that works out.
All righty. Betsy, anything else you want to update anybody on Huff?
Okay, on Huff, there's really not a whole lot to say, but at this point, we've got 4 months to go for people to submit their films. Our committee of 12 people has looked at 86 films,
But
and 35 of those were underwater. So, and some of those 35 films, underwater films, have been pretty good. Not all of them are going to make the cut, but you know, we're cruising right along. 4 months to go, looking at the films, and
Do we have it, Betsy, do we have it actually advertised now? The art house flicks as a
no,
category?
that's a category that we will decide on once we see what kind of what kind of films we actually have. You know, when we select the films that are going to make the cut, then we can make the categories based on the films we've got and make a show that is entertaining. So I have a feeling we'll do art house flicks again, but it's not a submission category like short video or feature. So that's just up to us as a committee when we put on our show together.
okay. Scott, you're working on some stuff for the film festival, right?
Yeah, sure. I can definitely get something put together.
Yeah.
Hey, well, everybody remember, January, anything goes. I don't know if Scott knows about it, but just short clips, look, less than a minute, in 30 seconds, just a bunch of them.
Yeah, I'll send you some stuff.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys noticed in the ICLITE newsletter that came out last
Yes.
week that Jean put in a big ad for the HUPS, which was really nice of her. And I think she's going to come to this one. She plans to actually
Good.
attend. So that'll be
Cool.
great. She can set up her own booth for ICLITE.
Okay. Do you want us to start hitting the sponsors up like we did last
Absolutely.
year?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's just difficult because the resorts, for the most part, are not open. We can't get much resort sponsorship, but we can go back to ICLITE and some of the other people that sponsored us before. But I think we might have to wait another year before we get good resort sponsorships out of this. But
You might be able to get something out of Cozumel.
I don't know. It's worth asking.
Scuba Club, maybe.
I have no idea, but we can ask, and they can. All I can do is say no.
Yep. All right. Any other questions on the film festival? Anybody? Okay.
Just the dates, maybe just to repeat the dates.
April 2nd and 3rd.
April 2nd and 3rd, 2022, at the Match Theater in Midtown, Houston.
That'll be nice.
Very nice place. I think that's about all I have. Anybody have any announcements or anything they want to share? Nope.
I'm going to Tennessee next 2 weeks.
And what are you going to do there? Jeeping?
Yep.
I'm going to Arkansas.
Oh, boy.
You Jeepers. You Jeep guys.
Yeah, I'll be at a Jeepy place that I wanted to go, but I couldn't go.
Is this the badge place?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, it's pretty cool. We did
Yeah,
it.
cool.
I'll be driving up to the Panhandle to look at our farms, and I'll be back sometime before October.
You're gonna go up and grease the windmills?
Yeah. Well, we get checks every month or every quarter. We get checks for it.
Right.
Put some antifreeze in them, Dennis.
What's that?
Put some antifreeze in them.
Yeah.
How many windmills you got on there?
We don't actually have any on our property. We went ahead and signed the contract for leasing the land, but the engineers decided to put the windmills on other land. So we're getting the money and none of the inconvenience.
Well, last month we drove to California, and you just cannot believe all the windmills out in that part of the country to the
There's a lot.
southwest.
Oh,
Southwest. It's just
West
amazing.
Texas is covered with them.
Yeah.
West Texas, it's amazing.
It
Yeah,
is.
our little place in Floyd County is like an epicenter. I know growing up there of what the winds were like. Yeah, there was never a day that went by that you didn't have almost a constant wind.
Hello, Sage.
There
Welcome.
you are.
Okay, Dennis, I think I'm ready to hand it over to you. If no one else has any announcements.
Yeah, David, I got one
Okay.
other thing.
Yes, sir.
If I could, so ostensibly I'm in charge of workshops, and we haven't done that much this year. We've been pretty busy, but been thinking about October. I'm just wondering if you guys who were involved would be willing to do a presentation on new photo contest rules, and perhaps dovetail that in with another kind of show and tell about you know, the categories for next year. So instead of trying to do half year, I'm thinking about just, you know, kind of hitting spots of the most difficult categories, maybe for people to understand for next year. So Martin, would you be willing to talk about
Yeah,
the new?
that sounds great. I was
Yeah.
going to suggest something like that, actually.
Yep.
Also on that same line, since we're loosening our rules on editing a little bit, could we also have a short section in there about how to do things like burning and
Oh, wow.
yeah,
Pretty-
doing a
pretty
few
ex-
things in Photoshop and Lightroom.
Well, my first
to-
reaction is that that's too much material.
That's
That-
another whole
Okay.
workshop.
That's another, yeah, exactly. I mean, so we can certainly do that in the future, but I think the first thing is to, yeah, we'll think about it. You know, there might be some really simple things that we want to highlight that before the rules prevented you from doing this, but now you can do this. Just some, you know, simple examples like that. We can
Okay.
work on it, but I think really
Hey,
going
Craig.
into those techniques is going to be stressing our time limits.
Hey, Craig, when you do this is the way it used to be, and now you can do that. You say an example, shouldn't we have somebody do like a 10-second or a 15-second actual illustration as to what the difference is?
Well, it's a slippery slope. You know, if you get Dennis talking about dodging and burning, you know, it's gonna, it could go on for a while. So we'll have to be judicious about that. But yeah, I mean, something really simple like, you
Maybe
know,
just before and after pictures. That way people can
Could be.
see the difference.
yeah, I don't, you know, planning these things in real time on Zoom is probably not the best idea, but you know, some kind of indication of what's different. I have a feeling that people who are interested in that are not gonna need so much tutorial on that anyway. They probably know some things about Lightroom and Photoshop
Well, I
anyway.
think some people do and some people don't. I think
Yeah,
that's the problem. And we want to try to create a level playing field. We don't want to have, well, now a bunch of people drop out because they feel they can't compete anymore because they don't know Photoshop or something.
well, you guys come up with some examples, and you know, we've got a little bit of time to put it together. And
When are
I
we
just-
planning this for?
it's the October date. I think it's October 23rd.
Okay, so that's coming right up.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
we had a date for 23rd.
I
But we're
think
just gonna
that-
do it on Zoom, so we're not gonna need
Yeah.
the room, because I canceled the room already.
Yes, exactly. No, it'll be a Zoom meeting. But
Okay,
you know,
I
I
think
just
it's
don't
gonna
want to get hung up because you can get so much
Yeah,
into
yeah.
detail.
Yeah,
You
well, we know that because we've done workshops before just on the Lightroom stuff and we did like 6 of them or something.
I don't want this to be an Aaron Quigley kind of, you know, thing.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, exactly.
I think just sticking with like the new topics and what they're going to encompass and just the basic rules going forward would really help, like especially me not knowing any of that.
Right, right.
And then
so
if we
too.
want to go into those techniques, have a whole separate
Session,
I think that's
tutorial.
right.
session, yeah.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah,
Okay.
because there's not, and first of all, there's not an enumerated list of techniques that are now okay that weren't okay. It's more of a general kind of thing. I'll let Martin, you know, Martin, if you want to say to the group, you know, it basically comes down to, you know, doing some things that you know, are not just global in nature. And in talking about this, we realized that actually defining global was going to be a real difficult thing to do with the software that's out there right now, because not everybody agrees on what's a global change and what isn't. And so we just kind of punted on that and just said, well,
Well,
as
we've
long as
opened
you're not adding a
we've
fish
opened
in
it up
something.
some. Yeah,
Sorry?
we've opened it up some more. We're not
Yeah,
being
exactly.
so, you know, concrete. It must fit within this box. You know, it gives people more freedom. And so we need to be able to, we have to explain that to people. We're giving you this much rope, but don't go beyond this, you know.
Yeah. So great. We'll work on that, and I'll be contacting people to, you know, participate in that. And
Sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good way to break into new rules and maybe get some new competitors for the contest next year.
Yeah, and on the themes, I have done the work of figuring out the themes. I just haven't sent them out yet. So I need to do that
Okay.
too.
Oh, okay. I thought we put those out like a full year in advance or something. I haven't checked
Yeah.
myself since I'm not entering.
That's what we're supposed to do. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
All right, anybody else? All right, Dennis, you're on stage.
Okay, well, I invited Scott Bauer to come and give a presentation. I've been following Scott ever since I met him on the Flower Gardens trip with Jesse and Janvi a couple of about 3 years ago, wasn't it, Scott?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think.
I think
Yeah,
20,
and it was a very interesting trip. There were some good people on board. I enjoyed it a lot. One thing that struck me about Scott, I didn't know him at the time, but we did get to know each other a little bit on the boat, is that he was always messing with his camera, looking at his photos and playing with the controls and things like that. And I started looking at what he was doing underwater and topside, and I realized this guy really has a feel for his equipment. He wants to understand it. He wants to know how to get the most out of it. And especially when it came to something us videographers are interested in, is shooting without light, natural light, using white balance, custom white balance. He seemed to be able to do something that allowed him to take video at depth that looked pretty damn good. And so I started following Scott, and we exchanged information, and he's living in Austin. And I've over the last 2 to 3 years, I've seen him progress in his capability and his interest, and he's even got his new dive site right now called Dive Locker 79, which is really fascinating because he's posted a lot of his videos about his trips around the Texas inland lakes and here and there. So I think that Scott is one of these people that I characterize as a rising star in the field. We're getting him at early on in his diving career, but I'm pretty sure that we're going to see a lot more of him in the future. One of the things, if you've seen any of his videos, is that it's so obvious that he really gets a kick out of diving. He enjoys it. He enjoys the people that are in it. And he has the capability to express himself verbally and visually that is very unique. And so I asked Scott if he would do a show for us, and he said he would. And I said, I know that you do a lot of diving in the Texas waters, inland waters, and off into the Gulf. And he said, yeah, he'd do something like that. So I'd like to turn this over to Scott, and hopefully we'll be able to see everything. We did a little run through this afternoon, and it seemed to be working okay. Scott?
Yeah, well, Dennis, thank you. I deserve none of that, but I really do appreciate it. So I'm going to share my screen real quick and run.
Yeah, people, you need to go ahead and go to mute.
And is everybody able to hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Cool. Awesome. So I am going to run through the slideshow. As Dennis said, it's going to go from the freshwater springs in the hill country all the way down to the Gulf. And so aside from places that you probably know of like Spring Lake and Land Lake and New Braunfels, I've been trying to find new places to explore, and just really anywhere that has really clear water out here that I can stick my camera underwater and get some new shots. So that's one thing that I've been kind of into lately, searching Google Maps and just looking for a new place to go. But yeah, and these pictures right here that are on my intro slide, this is all Spring Lake, and Land Lake is where this profile picture was taken. But I really appreciate having this area in my backyard, and kind of something that Dennis and I were talking about the other week was maybe putting together some sort of event where everybody comes over here to Austin. Maybe we can all sign up. I've already taken the DAC, the diver authorization course for Spring Lake, but maybe everybody that hasn't can sign up for that class, and then we could do some sort of photography workshop or something along those lines, where you could go into Spring Lake and mess around with your gear, try different lighting. And that's why I really appreciate having Spring Lake over here. It's just a really great way to test out different things and play around. But what got me started in diving and photography kind of came a little bit after that. But well, first off, to be honest, I got started in photography in college. My undergrad was in art. I got my Bachelor of Fine Arts at Texas Tech University. And just as an elective, I took some classes in the darkroom. This was in the early 2000s, so they're still doing darkroom stuff. Back then, and digital cameras weren't quite. They were around. They existed, but they weren't quite something that you really wanted to play around with just yet. Nobody thought it was real. Everybody hated them. But down the road, I got into just completely unrelated. I got into keeping live coral in saltwater tanks, and that started to develop this fascination with marine life, and it just kind of built out from there. And these are some photographs that that I took with my DSLR when I had a saltwater tank. I don't run it anymore. It's too much work, and I like to travel, so it's just not something that you can do anymore when you're home half the time. But this picture up on the top left is a 75-gallon reef that I used to keep, and there's some Monipora and some Porites and all these different species of coral that you get to watch grow, and you get to really understand what hurts them, what they thrive on, different types of lighting. Even different types of water quality. The soft corals might do better when the water's slightly dirtier, and the stony corals might do better when the water is completely flawless. And of course, you need to keep track of your chemical levels, your calcium, your alkalinity, and all that stuff. And it really kind of starts to something that you can really nerd out on, I guess, for lack of a better term. But when I got into diving, that's actually what inspired me to dive. And when I got into diving, then I kind of started getting back into photography. And I think photography is what kept me into diving for so long, because that's the reason why I can go into Spring Lake literally every weekend for the last 5 years and still be entertained by diving the same exact place. Because it's just a game of like, I'm going to the same place, but how do I make a different composition? How can I still take a photograph that looks somewhat different than it did last weekend in the same exact spot? But this is kind of what this photograph right here is. What kind of this is the bug that bit me, that really got me hooked. I took this photograph right after I got open water certified, and when I went on my first dive trip down to the Florida Keys. This is on a little reef, a really nice reef actually. I mean, any reef in Florida is somewhat beat up coral wise, but this is Lou Key, and at the time there's still elkhorn there. When I was there 5 years ago, now it's gone now from what I understand. But yeah, so this is a photograph that I took with a GoPro Hero 4, an ancient GoPro, and it's kind of what got me really interested in pursuing photography. I really enjoyed shooting this and working on it, and it wasn't Lightroom, it's some other I don't even know what program it was that I edited it in. So these are just some shots of some random places of, you know, Spring Lake down at the bottom left, of course, and then Land Lake is kind of like New Braunfels Spring Lake. That's the shot on the bottom right with that pavilion. And the top two places are places that I just randomly found and had, you know, absolutely had to explore. And then, of course, we're going to cover the Gulf of Mexico a little bit too. So when I got certified, I remember I got open water certified in the training area at Spring Lake. And if you're not familiar with that location, they have an area roped off that you're allowed to take classes in. And they tell you you're not allowed to go beyond that rope, or there's some crazy fine, $15,000 or something like that. You know, they say, whatever you do not go beyond this rope. The only way that you can see what's beyond the rope is by logging 20 dives and then taking the diver authorization course and diving as a volunteer. And that was really interesting to me because I just, you know, I wanted to know what it looks like on the other side of that rope. And I mean, it looks like this. It's you know, such a magical place. Absolutely love it. And it's just fun because you have, you know, you have all these different objects that you can interact with. The glass bottom boats, there's, you know, little salamanders that are endemic to the area. This is the San Marcos salamander. Occasionally you can see the Texas blind salamander. Typically you have to, it's rare to see the Texas blind salamander. They have little traps there that go kind of deeper into the cave system that they can pull up, and you can see them that way. But of course they have spotted gar, and that's one thing that kind of got me hooked on diving here too. I just really love the gar. And I'm always trying to get this composition right here, but the opposite way. It bothers me that his nose is up into the weeds on the right side of the photograph. These gar hang out in the same exact spot every winter. This area right here where these gar pictures are taken, this is what we call the gar bar. And I don't know why they come here. They go underneath, there's like an overhanging tree that's right above this spot. And the gar always come here in the wintertime. Typically from November to March. They're always hanging out here in a big group. And sometimes I've seen 30 at a time in one place, but typically it's maybe 4 or 5. And I approach in the exact same way. I'm always trying to get a composition of this gar kind of doing this thing that he's doing where he's fluttering away from me, but I want his nose to be facing towards open water, and still haven't been able to get that. But I think it would look better because his nose kind of gets lost in those weeds. So that's something that I'm always trying to do in the wintertime, is get that ideal shot of one of these guys. So there's also mermaids in Spring Lake. San Marcos has a long existing heritage with mermaids, because this used to be a theme park in the 1960s, I think up until the 80s. It used to be called Aquarina Springs, and that's where the glass bottom boats came from. The glass bottom boats were actually in a freshwater spring in Florida. I'm not sure the exact history, but at some point in time, the owners of Aquarina Springs brought these glass bottom boats over here to Texas, and they had a mermaid show. They actually had an underwater theater called the Submarine Theater, and people would go down, they'd look through glass, kind of like an aquarium, and the mermaids would do a show. This particular mermaid, her name is Lanisa, and I met her along with another guy named John David. He's a film student at UT working on his master's degree, and this was part of his thesis project. He was working on a movie that he called the Texas Mermaid movie. And in the Texas Mermaid movie, he found Lanisa as the main actor, and a lot of it involves a mermaid here in San Marcos. So throughout the shooting, I was just doing some stills for them that they could use for postcards, and that's where this photograph came from. I really like split shots. Split shots are something that have always intrigued me. So that's, you know, this photograph right here is one of my favorites. You can see our hands right underneath that glass bottom boat. Just everything worked out perfect by accident, and I thought that was a lot of fun doing that shoot. One thing that I've kind of noticed too, and I'm sure a lot of y'all feel the same way, is that underwater photographs are always a lot more interesting if they involve a number of different elements. In this particular place, in Spring Lake, you get a lot of the light beams because the water has some sort of mineral content in it, and it creates these real dense light beams when the light is shining through a tree. It also has these trees that overhang over the edge. So I always kind of figure if I can get a composition that has whatever's going on above the surface, and then I could get some sort of subject, in this case, it's just a little sunfish. And then if I could get some sort of beams going through the water, I feel like that's a pretty successful image. And I really like this one. And I've also learned that I really like shooting, instead of chasing after the big animals or the rare animals, I really like shooting pictures of sunfish. They're pretty to me. They look like little tropical fish, and I feel like they're a really good thing to have included in any composition. Yeah, and just another thing about having access to this lake is you could come by during any time of day that's within their operating hours. So it gives you the chance to experiment with different lighting conditions. And this was taken at twilight. This picture of this guard is kind of hanging out before it's starting to get dark in the wintertime. This was, I think it was in late August, and I don't know what these little minnows are, but they were covering the entire, I mean, it had to be the surface of the entire lake in that spot. And I've never seen that before. And I was swimming close to the surface. My dive buddy was a little bit below me, and he pointed, and I looked around, and these minnows were swimming around me in a circle. And I really wish he had the camera at the time, because it would have been a pretty interesting photograph. But they eventually just all went to the surface like that. And these bass were hanging out right underneath them, taking gulps at them, trying to eat them. And in this shot, I really kind of liked how my dive buddy's bubbles were coming up, behind that bass as well. I also like clouds. I like white puffy clouds with blue sky. I like being able to see that through the surface, and that's another reason why I enjoy this photograph. So the San Marcos River is what Spring Lake empties into, and this is one of the two waterfalls that starts the San Marcos River. Over to the right of this photograph is the other waterfall, and this is always a really interesting place. Just to bring a snorkel and look around. All sorts of gambusia, which are little tiny minnow-looking fish, very colorful fish. There's also San Marcos salamanders all underneath the rocks in this area as well. People find arrowheads here quite often. It's just a really interesting place, and the water's always super clear right here by the waterfalls. It doesn't matter how many inner tubers are on the river, you can always count on this spot being clear. This is close to the
what is the temperature? What is the temperature there?
Spring Lake is going to be 72 degrees year round. And in the wintertime, because it's 72, it has this nice little steam, these thick clouds of steam that are rising up off of the water, which also make for pretty cool photographs sometimes. Yeah, that's just a shot closer to that waterfall. It's my friend Dylan. You probably see him in some of my YouTube videos quite a bit. That's underneath the waterfall. These are Plecostomus armor-plated catfish. It's a lot easier to say that. These are armor-plated catfish that live in the San Marcos River, also Spring Lake as well. There's a guy named Nick that lives in San Marcos. You can't miss him. He has huge dreads. He's always surfing. He found a rapid in the river that makes a perfect wave, and he's actually able to surf on it as if you're surfing in the ocean. But he has a business called Inland Environmental, where he's contracted by the city to spearfish these plecos, and he takes people with him. So me and some of my friends have gone with him quite a few times. He also takes people over to Land O'Lake, to where he can spearfish for invasive tilapia, and it's a really good way to interact with that environment, because you're removing harmful species. But to be honest, as harmful as they are, I think there's something about plecos that are I really like seeing them, even though they're bad. I really like seeing them, and I enjoy trying to take photographs of them too when I can, when I'm not trying to murder them.
Why are they bad?
They eat, from what I understand, they dig holes in the side of the river. They make little burrows. I wish I included a picture of that in the slideshow, actually. I have a really good shot of that. They dig these burrows in the side of the river, and it causes more erosion than necessary. And because they're digging these holes, it also fogs up the water. It allows the water to become, I guess, more cloudy than usual, which is going to affect the vegetation that grows there. They also eat vegetation, so they might be eating pennywort or Ludwigia, any of the the rare plants that grow in the San Marcos River. But to be honest, I don't think that they are eating those plants. The biggest thing that I can see is that they dig those burrows.
But they're an invasive species, right? They're not native to the river.
They're not native. No, they come from the Amazon, from what I understand.
Yeah, we have them here in Houston. Yeah, in Buffalo Bayou. They're pretty nasty.
Yeah.
One of them crawled up on our deck. Apparently they can just go out of the water and live out of the water.
They can.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we spear them, we do this competition every year. And you have to go over to Nick's house and weigh them and count them and measure them. And sometimes I guess you don't actually kill them. And every now and then they'll just start flopping around. And they've been out of the water for hours by that point. They can definitely last a long time out of the water.
Did you say that all your films are, all your shots are ambient light?
Or what?
Ambient.
Oh, yeah. So I do a lot of natural light shooting, and not so much lately. Lately, I've been using some LED lights. I'll talk about those at the end of the slideshow. Okay. Pretty much everything that I've showed you so far is all natural light, is all ambient light. And the LEDs that I use, they're really just kind of a filler. Like, for example, this photograph was all natural light, but the shadow in his chest and the shadow on the front of the backpack, the LEDs that I use would be more of like a filler to kind of fill in those dark spots and make it look a little bit better. I also notice it helps if you're using an auto white balance, which is a no-no for a lot of people, it actually does seem to help that. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just my imagination. But yeah, on my Sony, when I switch to underwater auto, don't tell anybody, it does seem to make that work better. Another thing I like to do custom white balances, especially if I'm diving deeper. Yeah, and this is a YouTuber. His name's Gatewood Brown. You should definitely check out his channel. So his entire channel is kayaking on Texas rivers. He does kayak camping. He calls it yak packing. And he does, he goes on all these beautiful crystal clear rivers like the Nueces or the Frio. And he likes to free dive too. But he was running a line of backpacks, a line of dry bags, which, if you're going to do kayak camping on rivers, are definitely a necessity. So he met up with me out at that waterfall, and we did a photo shoot for his line of dry bags. And that's where that shot came from. I can't switch the slide. That's weird. There we go. That's just a split shot of the Lions Club on the San Marcos River. And this is my friend's dog, Whiskey. The San Marcos River is loaded full of dogs, so I like to sneak up on people's dogs. I know that sounds super creepy. I like to photograph dogs playing in the water, though. It's kind of fun. That's Ivar's River Pub in the background. I like the comfort level that Whiskey has when he wears sunglasses too. He doesn't seem to mind. He doesn't try to shake them off. He'll just kind of hang out with those sunglasses on. And that's just a random golden retriever I came across on the river, playing with his ball. His face is a little blurry, not the best photo. This is a guy he was working on a music video for his band, and he wanted this to be, he wanted to do like an album cover underwater. So that's what this is. This is just in the Texas Wild Rice. This particular spot is right by Texas State campus. And it's just loaded full of that long Texas Wild Rice that kind of waves in the current. Really cool place. Another shot of the rice. And that's over by the Texas Lions Club, kind of near that spot. It's just a rock. And this area in the summertime, this area is just really murky. Not even worth trying in the summertime. There's so many inner tubers, but in the wintertime, it's actually this clear. Sorry, that's Siri. That's annoying when that happens. But in the wintertime, it actually does get that clear downstream, and it's a really good time to get in the river and take some shots when nobody's in it. So Land O'Lake is, as I said earlier, it's the main spring by New Braunfels. I think this is actually the largest cluster of springs in the state of Texas, from what I understand. And it has this really large field of Ludwigia, which is that purple plant in the foreground. Really beautiful plant. That girl that's sitting on the edge, that's Mermaid Lanisa. She was down there, and we were doing a mermaid photo shoot in this spring as well. And if you, in between those trees is the main spring run, and that water is so clear right there. It almost seems like it's as clear as air. I really like that particular spot. It does have a lot of air bubbles in it though, so you have to be careful to clear the air bubbles off of your dome port when you're shooting. It's another shot in that same spot. You can see how clear the water is. I mean, it's unreal. And how red that the Ludwigia, it's either purple or it's red or it's brown. In this particular case, it just looks really red. Kind of looks like coral. It's in the same area. So this is in the same spring in Land O'Lake, and they have a tilapia problem. And that's what we're doing in the water here with these spear guns is shooting the tilapia. They're delicious, and they do need to be shot. They are harmful for a number of reasons, from what I understand. I can't really tell you exactly why. I just know that they need to be taken out. And this is with our friend Nick again, as explaining earlier. It's another spear fishing shot. This spring is very shallow, by the way. Maybe it's 15 feet at its deepest, but it goes on forever. It's just a large, expansive area of just as, brilliantly clear water. Big fields of this grass that's underneath Dillon here. It's called, I believe it's called Arrowhead.
So I've never been to Land O'Lake. You said it's fairly deep, it sounds like. Can anybody dive there, or do you have to have special permission, or how does that work?
Oh, well, it's in certain areas it's 15 feet deep. Mostly it's maybe 5 feet deep or so. It is not open to the public. I've gotten permission to scuba dive there to take photographs for EAA, the Edwards Aquifer Authority. And now they're even giving me a hard time to do that, even if it's for them. But it's there is an area that you can access if you know somebody that lives on the edge of the lake. They have an area called, I think it's called Spring Island, that's surrounded by houses, and those people are actually allowed to access the lake. And I was actually there the other weekend. One of my friends knows somebody that lives there, so we were able to get in. But yeah, that's really the only way, unfortunately, because it would be a great place to dive. There's plenty of area that's deep enough to actually be on scuba. And it's just really, really beautiful.
Is that the headquarters of the Comal?
Yeah, that's the headwaters of the Comal.
Okay.
This is going to be upstream of Schlitterbahn. This is where it all starts.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's all private. You can't go in there.
Yeah. When I was in here, I had to get permission from the city, and it was to do an assignment for EAA. And this is an aerial shot of that main spring run that I've shown you those pictures of that purple plant called Ludwigia. You can see how it's, you can see these grids, these squared out areas. So what they're doing, I think it's called duckweed. They're trying to get rid of the duckweed, if that's what they call it. Maybe it's called eelgrass. I think it's called eelgrass, actually. Sorry, I'm not a scientist. But they're trying to get rid of the plant that's there right now. And they're trying to grow more of Ludwigia, which is the purple plant. So what they're doing, they're laying down these tarps and putting rocks on top of it. And they'll just leave those tarps there for a really long time. They'll move it and plant little plugs. Here's an underwater view of the tarps. And they'll plant these plugs of the Ludwigia, and it's taking hold and it's doing really well. And that's just kind of that's a project that the city's been working on. a really cool area about this spot too is there's really big trees by the edge of the water, and you get these light rays if you're there at the right time. This is below. This is downstream of Land O'Lake and the Comal River. You know, as we were saying earlier, Land O'Lake is the headwaters of the Comal. And it's just it's kind of a fun place to jump in and take some split shots, and you have the different types of vegetation and everything that I really like. The water's a little bit cloudier down here. Now, this is a special one. So this place, in a past life, I used to work in logistics. I used to be a shipping broker. I guess you could call it a middleman for shipping. So I would call a customer, see what they had to ship, full truckload wise. I only did full truckload, and then I would have to book that truckload shipment. And a lot of them were local Texas customers. And there was a customer that wanted to deliver a flatbed load to Conkin, Texas, out in the hill country. It was running from Houston to Conkin. And I was looking at Google Maps, and I noticed this, this area right here. This is the Frio River. It's one of the many starting points of the Frio River. And I noticed that suspension bridge that you kind of see over there on the left side, and it looks like a crack, like a really deep part of the river. Here's a closer look. And you can see right underneath that bridge, it just gets dark. And up north of where it says Comanche Outpost Road, it does the same thing. And I just randomly saw this, at work one day, and I thought that, I had to do whatever I could do to see that, because I was really curious about what that was. Is that a cave entrance? My imagination was just kind of running wild when I saw that. And I thought that maybe this water is deep enough to get a good dive in. Maybe it's worth bringing the underwater camera to. Maybe a year or two passed before I was finally actually able to figure out who owned this land and how to contact them. It turns out this is a summer camp that is owned by HEB, the grocery store, and it is it's like a nonprofit, I guess. It's for underprivileged children. They told me that their mission is to they want to bring inner city kids that wouldn't normally have the opportunity to go fishing in outdoor environments, or go to a beautiful place like this and just spend time outside. And that's the goal of this place. And I really like that mission. I really like the program that they're running. And when I was actually able to come here and dive, the facility is really nice too. And it's actually a really cool place, and they're super friendly. I just emailed them and sent them a link to my website and told them that I'm really up to, the only thing that I'm up to here is I just want to go in the water and scuba dive with my camera. Can I come over and do that? And they said yes. And yeah, they just wanted to have the images in return. They just wanted me to be sure that I send them the images, because they were really curious themselves about what it looks like underwater here. This is a shot right down by the water. And you can see that crack that I'm talking about in the bottom right-hand part. It's like a slot canyon in Utah, if you've ever seen anything like that. It's like an underwater version of that. Really interesting. The big question in my head, though, is there an underwater cave here? And that's what I wanted to know. And this is a shot in the water, looking straight down that crack. The crack is actually, not to disappoint anybody, the crack is actually maybe only 25 feet deep. There is no cave entrance, although there is a dry cave entrance in this area. There's no underwater cave here in this body of water, but there is a spring. And this is one of the main headwater parts, probably one of the 4 large headwaters of the Frio River, headwater springs. I brought a free diver with me, and she was, going up and down through that little slot canyon. And the viz was incredible. It had to be 70-foot viz. I went another time. This is Jose and Christina. If anybody dives Spring Lake, you probably know who they are. They actually teach the DAT course right now, them and Scott Cameron. And if anybody's interested in diving Spring Lake, I could connect you with them and show you where to sign up for the course. This is a shot from the bottom of that canyon or crack, or whatever we're calling this.
There are no fish here?
That's the funny thing about it. There was these minnows at the top. There was a lot of fountain darters. Well, they're not fountain darters. They're called green throat darters. You know, it's like the colorful version of the fountain darter that you'll see at Spring Lake. They were really colorful. They have bright green and red throats. There was a few bass. There's a giant catfish, and that's really the only fish that I saw. But as far as the topography is concerned, it's a very interesting place. I just felt like I was underwater hiking in Utah. Is kind of what I felt like. There's little sunfish. That's really all you're going to get with fish, though, is a few sunfish.
It's really unique, though. It doesn't even look like Texas.
Like these guys. Very unique, and that's what's so interesting about it to me, is the fact that you wouldn't imagine this little oasis to be in the middle of Texas. The water was incredibly cold, by the way. We went in the wintertime. This was in February, the first time I went, and it was 54 degrees. Only had a 5 mil. The second time I went with a Hollis 8 mil semi-dry, and that was much better. And before I move on to the next spot, this dive site, though, it goes on forever. And I've only explored maybe 200 or 300 yards of it. What I want to do coming up soon, my friend has underwater scooters, DPVs. And I want to do like the whole length from the entrance point to the dam down below. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Scott, did you have to plan your diving to where you were going to get in and where you're going to get out?
No, we just kind of guessed. We just kind of guessed on when we should turn around. There's a staircase cut into the side of the cliff, and then there's a metal ladder down there at the very bottom, the main swimming hole. They call it the blue hole. And I know there's 200 places called the blue hole. But yeah, that's where we got in. There's like a nice little ladder and everything. So this is Lake Nueces. This is all the way out near Campwood, Texas. Very dry out there, very arid. It's beautiful though. I love. I really enjoy the desert, and I really kind of enjoyed that driving from Austin to Campwood, because you're driving through the western part of the hill country. You're just watching the trees get smaller and smaller and smaller, and I'm sure if you just keep on going, you'll eventually end up in Mexico. And it's kind of what you feel like. This is a fun drone shot that I took out there with these crosses in the foreground. It's a drone shot of the front of the dam, and this is the Nueces River. I also did this in the wintertime too. The water was also exactly 54 degrees. I was better prepared this time though. I had my Hollis semi-dry 8 mil, which is great, by the way. I highly recommend that. And the way I found out about this place was through a post made by Eric Schlegel. I'm not sure if anybody knows him. He's a photographer that's all over the place out here in Texas. You'll see a lot of his stuff in Texas Highways magazine. But I saw him post some images in really clear water somewhere, and I asked him, I was like, where is this? And he told me it's Lake Nueces. So he made a second trip, and we dove out there together. He's really into surfing too, which is why he's got that Aquatech. I guess it's kind of like a surf photography setup. And the viz in Lake Nueces is also 70 feet, probably, give or take. Unbelievable. Like, I had no idea that this place existed until maybe a week before I went here. And I mean, my mind was blown. But this is my goal. You know, my goal is to find as many places in Texas that look like this, and there's more than you think. That's what I'm learning. There's so much private property in Texas too, and I think that's part of it. A lot of it is just not really publicized. I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with Hamilton Pool, but there is a larger formation, a formation that's slightly larger than Hamilton Pool. It's called Edge Falls. And no one knows about it because it's completely locked in on private property, and they don't want anyone to know about it. But there's a lot of really well kept secrets like that all throughout the hill country out here.
Hamilton Pool used to be that way.
Yeah.
back in 1970. Yeah, it's like, oh, drive out Bee Cave Road and then turn right at this Sinclair station and go down this little road, and
There's a big hole in the ground. Yeah.
yeah, and some farm boys there that would take $1 from you. So then you
Well, that's really interesting, actually.
yeah, it's not that way anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big tourist trap now, but Edge Falls is completely, I mean, I drove over there to fly my drone over it. I wasn't trespassing, but I parked on the side of the road and I was going to fly my drone over it. The owner caught wind of me in just seconds and drove out there. He wasn't very friendly at first, but I, just told him what I was doing and showed him some of my work, and he lightened up. He gave me his card. He told me I could reach out to him if I wanted to try to scuba dive in it. And I think that'd be something that would be a good next spot to go to, maybe. But yeah, more and more shots of Lake Nueces, and it's really long as well. This lake stays relatively shallow. Again, it's maybe 15 feet or so at its deepest, and just kind of stays that way and just goes on like this forever. You can see from those aerial photographs how big it is. But the light rays, if you go at the right time, light rays cascade over the edge of the cliff that's up on the left side of the lake.
God, have you ever checked out Devil's River?
That is on my list. I haven't had a chance to go out there yet, but I really want to. I think there's a lot of fun that could be had out there. Yeah, and there's a lot of old trees that kind of fell at the bottom of this lake that I really liked. Building a composition on. So this is a creek that feeds into that area, and I found this on Google Earth recently, and it looks like it starts at this spring that I bookmarked or marked right there where it says Devil's Canyon. And I think that might be a good area to check out if I could somehow figure out who owns that and find a way to legally legally access it. But I think that whole part of the creek and that lake that starts it might be kind of interesting to check out. So this has been bookmarked for the next adventure. Now, speaking of trespassing, this is called the Narrows. This is on the Blanco River. It's on the dry part of the Blanco River. And the Blanco River just runs dry for miles. And what you have is this rock formation right here, which is an ancient coral reef. Not sure what time period it is, but it's we're talking about sometime around the age of the dinosaurs. You could actually see brain corals. What used to be a brain coral kind of stuck on the side. I wish I had a photograph of that, but you can see maybe it's a star, something that was close to a star coral. But you can see a lot of marine fossils up on the side of the rock. Now, the only way to access this without trespassing is to go to a low water crossing way upstream, 8 miles upstream. And that's where we parked. And then we hiked on the dry riverbed the entire way down, 8 miles down. You have to stay on the dry riverbed, otherwise you're trespassing. But as long as you're on the dry riverbed, you're in what's legally considered a navigable waterway. So you're legally allowed to do this. You just have to put the work in to get here. I hiked my underwater camera, my wetsuit, and everything, some food, and it was a long trip because that's 16 miles in one day.
Isn't that part of owned by the Girl Scouts?
Well, that's that's actually where I was going to go next. So it wasn't Girl Scouts that was here when we were there. It was Boy Scouts. So we hiked all this way. And the water's usually crystal clear, but the scouts were there that day, and they had it all mucked up. And so me and my friend got in the water, and our other friend Sarah, she was standing up on top. And right as I took this photograph, everybody was talking about the police, and it turns out that the scouts called the police on us, thinking that we're trespassing. And as the police showed up, they saw Sarah take one step past this purple marker that's spray painted on a rock. Anytime you see a purple marker, that means no trespassing. You're not supposed to cross that side. It's a really blurred kind of line. But she stepped out of bounds by a foot, and they gave her a trespassing ticket. So I had to get out of the water, and because I felt bad by that point, we talked to them. they asked us what we did. They asked us, how did you get into the water? I said, I walked down this way. They're like, how did you get here? And I told them I hiked on the dry riverbed, and they're totally okay with that. And they said that we did nothing wrong, but because she stepped 1 foot over that boundary, they gave her a ticket. So they're pretty strict. And the landowners don't like people hiking out here. That they don't want. I'm not really sure. Maybe it's liability. Not really sure why, but they don't want people coming out here.
Well, it was way long time ago, because we went with some folks that lived in Blanco, and it's like Jacob's Well times 30. There's all these little holes along there. But I thought I tried to find it later, and I found it, but I asked landowners, and they told me it's Girl Scout camp. So I don't know
that could be the case. That could definitely be the case. When I was there, the Boy Scouts are there, but they're technically, I guess they're under the same umbrella, maybe.
I don't know, but it was
that could definitely be the case.
Yeah, that was really a strange place.
It is definitely, and you're right about the holes. So it looks like it looks like a horizontal tunnel has been bored, and then it looks like vertical tunnels have been bored on top of that. That's the kind of natural formation that this creates, and it creates these little archways. And I went diving down underneath, and it's multiple archways. There's like 2 rows of them. It's really, really unique. It's really interesting. I wish I had more underwater shots of it. I couldn't stay long because of what happened. So I do plan on going back, especially when the water's clear, when there's not people swimming in it. Maybe I'll try to get some underwater shots of it.
Well, tell people it's outside of Blanco.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a Boy Scout camp I used to go to as a kid that was near there called El Rancho Cima.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, and I think it may be part of that or something.
It's not.
It's not?
No,
when I was in the Scouts, I've been we went to Philmont, and we would do our training hikes in El Rancho Cima.
Yeah, but they bought some new land a few years back and added on to it. So it may have taken in some of that. Yeah.
I think Cima's up closer to Wimberley, Devil's Backbone area.
It's got the Blanco River in it, I believe.
That's where it goes. Okay.
I don't know. It's just, I mean, I can barely remember.
Yeah. It's definitely an interesting place, though. Whoever owns it, I have no idea who owns it. But they're not friendly, and it's worth the hike, though. This is the route that we took to get there. You can see the circle on the left. That's where we parked the cars and just hiked along them.
How long did it take you to do that? That's amazing.
Like 18 hours, maybe.
Wow.
The whole trip was 18 hours. It took us 4.5 hours to walk there. We got in the water. We walked back, but we're stopping along the way too, just eating. There's a lot to see on the riverbed. A lot of dramatic cliffs, and I bet if you just walked and did not stop, you could probably do the whole thing in 10 hours. Get there, turn around, get back.
How did you first hear about it?
It's always been something that I've heard of since I moved here. So a friend that I used to work with, I think he pointed it out to me first, and he knew one of the landowners and showed me pictures of it and told me that, oh, there's no way I could get there. You have to know these people, And then
decades ago, there was an article in the Chronicle. I think it was called the Parade magazine. There was something about it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's been articles about it. I think even in Texas Highways magazine.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I just heard about it through hearsay. Researching it online, because there's Facebook groups of people. There's Facebook groups dedicated to people planning trips to go here too, and that's partly how we figured out how to do this and where to park and how to get there, how to not break the law. You can also go from the downstream route. So the Blanco River is completely dry, the area that we walked on. And then where you see the X, of course, that's where the Narrows is. That's where the formation is. So the river comes out from underground right there, and it's maybe a foot or two deep all the way downstream from there. If there's enough rain, I've heard of people stand up paddleboarding from the nearest low water crossing downstream. They'll paddleboard or kayak upstream, which is maybe 5 miles instead of 8 miles. It seems a little bit more pleasant than walking. And here's just some topside shots I took of it. There's my friend jumping into it. And it looks exactly like that, and it'll extend that way for maybe 200 to 300 yards. So, you know, some incredibly long distance like that, where you just have those holes, those vertical holes that look like they're bored straight down into the rock. And you can kind of see to the right of his shoulder is one of those archways that I'm talking about. So if you went underwater, you could swim completely underneath that rock that's right to the right of him.
Hmm.
So yeah, this is the flower garden banks. I have a video that I'm going to show you guys on this, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but I just kind of wanted to include it in the presentation. This photograph is from when I met. This is the same trip that I met you, Dennis. Actually, that's my friend Antonio.
I remember him.
That is a tanker that I saw. I took this shot from the top of the sun deck, and I don't know why. It's maybe the clouds in the background or something. It just kind of stuck out to me. I have this framed now above my bed, and I think people are like, "Why do you have a picture of an oil tanker on your wall?" I like it.
Yeah, it's pretty special.
No, it looks nice. I like the red and the blue. And
I like the color. Yeah, I think that's what stuck out to me is the red in the center and the horizontalness of it than the clouds. I like taking my split shots. It's the fling. This little guy. So this is I'm sure everybody here has been to the flower gardens. So this is a color variation of the smooth trunkfish. And this color variation only exists, from what I understand, it only exists on the east, the west, and Stetson Bank. The East Flower Garden Bank, West Flower Garden Bank, Stetson Bank. And I've heard of possibly some reef near Honduras, or, you know, but from what I understand, this is one of the few places in the world where you can find this fish. And on that dive, I kept hearing the dive masters talk about it. They're talking about the golden smooth trunkfish. And you know, next thing I know, I see this little SpongeBob looking creature swimming in front of me, and I was able to get that's the closest I was able to get to him. He wasn't very he was kind of shy, but I was just happy to see him. And this is actually a composite. So you'll see in the video that I'm going to show you that my shutter button got stuck, and it was just taking images like crazy. And I flicked my wrist, so it took multiple exposures from top to the bottom, and I was able to stitch those together into a panorama. So it's a legitimate photograph, as in like these fish were really over this part of the reef, but it's 3 exposures.
I don't know. I don't know if that would be legal in the contest.
Yeah, probably not. It took a lot of Photoshop to get those exposures to line up. I don't think a lot of what I do would be legal in the contest, because I take out a lot of backscatter. I use the clone sample a lot in Photoshop.
That's okay. You can remove battery.
Oh, you can? Okay. Yeah, and this is just one thing that I really like about the flower garden banks is the percentage of coral cover that you're going to see. And they say it's 50% coral cover. In the areas that you dive in, I mean, it has to be 80. It's just, you can see the star coral meeting up with this brain coral right here, the point to where they're fighting each other for space. You know, corals fight each other with they're either stinging each other, or they're using chemical warfare. You know, they have all these unique ways to fight each other off to gain more real estate. And you can see that's kind of what's happening right here between the star coral and the spring coral, that line that's in between the two.
Yeah, it's kind of like the DMZ.
Yeah. Because no coral can survive right there. At nighttime, the brain corals deploy sweeper tentacles, and they can actually sweep, you know, a relatively long distance, and they sting their neighbor and cause it to recede. So yeah, that gap in the middle, that's no man's land. Just a shot from the oil rig. And if anybody here is good at identifying fish, I'm pretty sure these are horseye jacks. I said in the video that they're horseye jacks. I could be wrong. They could be jack crevalle. I have no idea. They both look the same to me. If anybody has any input on that, I would like to update it before I post it.
We need Frank here.
I vote horseye jacks.
Horseye jacks.
I think the Jack Crevalles have a flatter front of their head.
That's what I read too.
Yeah.
They're more blunt in shape, I guess, right?
They don't look like Crevalle.
And this is orange cup coral. I had a friend that used to grow these when I was into the saltwater tank thing, and these are expensive. Like, I mean, like really expensive. She was paying $75 per head. Each one of those little nodules right there, that's, you know, what you would pay $75 for. They come from the Indo-Pacific, and I guess they were brought over here, maybe ballast water from cargo ships, tankers, who knows. But they grow in oil rigs here in the Gulf now, so they're very colorful. You can find green ones, orange ones, really any color. Purple.
Yeah, you find them all through the Caribbean as well.
Mm-hmm. Any overhang. They're non-photosynthetic, so they like the shade.
BVI, they're all over
Stetson
the place.
Bank?
BVI.
Oh yeah. Any shipwreck that I've dove in the Caribbean, anytime you go inside, they're just lined on the inside with them. This is a good example of natural light. This is all ambient light. I set the white color balance down here at depth. And as you can see, it did take out a lot of the color though. You know, in real life, I just feel like there's more purple, you know.
It looks correct to me. Really very correct.
The coralline algae. So coralline algae, if anyone's not familiar, it's like a calcium-based algae that it really keeps all the nasty algae in check for coral to be able to grow. But this area has really thick coralline algae to where it looks very purple. The rock, you know, has like that purple incrustation on it, and that is one thing that you do kind of miss out on when you're doing natural light in deep water like this. Because I mean, remember, this is like 70 feet, so I guess
What are you using?
the expectations.
What are you using, Scott? What are you using as a target for your white balance?
I had a little white dive slate that I was using, and I guess it's better, from what I understand, it's better to do what they call 50-50 grade, which is directly in between black and white. And you want the biggest slate possible. I had a small one. Now I just kind of use the sand bed, which I need to rethink that. I want to get a bigger slate, and I want it to be 50-50 grade, and I want it to be attached with some sort of zippy cord, you know, so you can keep it on your waist, you know, to where it's out of the way.
Well, in this particular photograph, if you get close enough, that tank is perfect.
Absolutely, that's what I was judging as well. And you still see a little bit of the yellow, the skin tones as well.
Yeah, I had to add that in manually. So yeah, that probably wouldn't make the contest either, huh?
Well, it's hard to say, you know, I mean, without.
The fire coral was natural. The fire coral was actually there in this photograph. I had to make his skin tone kind of a natural color.
Yeah, you know, white balance can't solve everything.
Exactly. And that's, you know, underwater, you know, light rays, when sunlight hits water, the deeper you go, the more warm colors are being removed. So there's really, if you're shooting natural light, there's virtually nothing that you can do to bring that color back without bringing artificial light. And I guess that's just the way the world is.
I think you also add a lot of noise as well.
Mm-hmm.
No, but this looks perfect of it to me. Really, it's great.
And then this little guy, again, fish ID. It's either a frogfish, a stonefish, a scorpionfish, a toadfish. It's one of those. And
Scorpion.
I just know you're not supposed to touch it.
Scorpion.
I used to have scorpionfish though. They're really flat and they kind of waved with the current. And they're from Indonesia. This guy.
That's a different type of scorpionfish.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Oh, leaf fish.
Leaf scorpion.
Yeah. He's a scorpion leaf fish. Is exactly what he was called. Little yellow guy. But all I know is you're not supposed to touch this. So.
Right.
But he's pretty. And there is a hermit crab. He's called a blue-eye hermit in the aquarium industry. I saw him on Stetson Bank and got a good shot at him. He is a longtime friend of mine. I used to keep one of these in the sump of my aquarium for years, and he just lived down there in the sump and ate up all the detritus that would settle down there and kept it really clean. But it's kind of funny when you come from, you know, a hobby like that, and then you see these animals in the wild. It's like seeing an old friend or something. And that's a golden eel. And those guys are little, you know, maybe that big. I shot that with the 90 macro. And that is it. So I will play the video. If I can find it. There we go.
We do have some Honduras people.
All right, so I need to figure out again how to share this. Sorry guys, bear with me. There we go. So this video is from my last trip to the Flower Garden Banks, and
It's not showing up on our screen.
yeah, I haven't found it yet. There, there we go. For some reason, I couldn't see the QuickTime option that was on here. All right, cool. So yeah, this is from the very last trip that I took to the Flower Garden Banks. It doesn't include what I did on Stetson. That's going to be another video coming up, but bear with me for the next 13 and a half minutes, and then after that, if we still have time, we could go through some of the gear that I use, because I do use a very budget-friendly rig, and I figured some people might have some questions about that. Can y'all hear it?
Yes, yeah.
Small craft exercise caution. Today, north winds 15 to 20 knots becoming northeast.
The only thing I'll tell you is that this weather sometimes is unpredictable. Right now, what I have on the radar is just light rain like you have right now. Use a lot of caution. Please use the lines. Those of you who are coming up and down without them, that was fine, but it's not now because the boat may be.
So I have a really epic trip planned this weekend. Right now I'm pretty much getting all my gear put together. I'm rounding up everything as far as lenses, batteries, drones, a big old bag of GoPros, and anything else that I might need. What I'm getting prepared for is a trip on a liveaboard dive vessel known as the MV Fling. We're headed 110 miles due south of Galveston, Texas to the edge of the continental shelf. We're going to be a long way from home. The forecast for this weekend is looking kind of grim, and the weather out here in the Gulf of Mexico is known to be very unpredictable. But I couldn't be more excited because this place is truly wild. What it is exactly that we're going all this way to see, you may find surprising. We're heading out to a living, breathing coral reef. What makes this place so special is not that it's comparable to coral reefs in the Caribbean, it's that it's better. We're talking 50% coral cover, along with the opportunity to see open ocean pelagic life. But what makes it so surprising is that it's all right here in Texas. Who knew that Texas not only had its own coral reef, but one of the healthiest reefs left in the Western Hemisphere? The Fling can get somewhat crowded, but it does have everything that you need on board. In between diving, your time may be spent filling up on snacks or napping on the spacious sun deck located up on top of the boat. Either way, when it's time to get geared up and ready for your dive, the giant stride you're about to take into the ocean involves a good 7-foot drop. And you feel every bit of that when you hit the water. But the part that frightens me is watching my camera dangling on this rope as they lower it back down to me. Sometimes the currents can be relatively strong, and you want to be sure to keep a good grip on the line. But the conditions today couldn't be better, with almost no current to contend with. You'll see at the bottom of this mooring line there's an American flag. That's because this trip occurred over the 4th of July, and in my opinion, this makes her a pretty cool shot. As I had my head down focusing on photographing these corals, I had a sneaking suspicion that something big was going on overhead. I was about to find out why. If you listen carefully, you can tell that my shutter button is stuck and I can't stop taking photographs unless I turn my camera off. This left me with no choice but to let the action unfold in front of me as I simply point my lens towards what's going on. This led to a very happy accident because a small flick of my wrist enabled me to capture multiple exposures in a vertical position that I was then able to tie together in post, creating a vertical panorama. Needless to say, this set of images easily became my favorite of the entire trip. Anytime we're wrapping up the dive and going back up the mooring line, I always have the urge to turn around and take one last look, because you never know when you're going to be able to come back to such an amazing place. Now that I've handed off my camera to the dive master, it's time to get back on board and get ready to have a nice hot meal. Which is one great thing about diving on the Flame, because after every single dive, they'll have a hot meal ready for you every time you get out of the water. So it's time to get some food in our stomachs, get all rested up, and get ready for the next one, because we have an oil rig to explore. This is Oil and Gas Platform, High Island 376A. And the last time that I dove here, it was an active production platform. This platform is no longer active and is most likely on the schedule to be removed out of the water sometime very soon. Which is unfortunate because it's an amazing place to dive. Most people would celebrate the idea of a large oil rig like this being removed from the ocean. Truth is, once they're no longer active, they pose almost no threat to the environment. and they create an amazing habitat for the local wildlife as well. They provide shelter for fish to spawn, as well as hard surfaces for corals to grow. And with any environment like this, there will always be the predators. But lucky for us, we as divers are typically not on the menu. Because this rig goes down to a depth of over 400 feet, the dangers that we have to contend with are more in line with the extreme depths and the ripping current.
If you see something down there, please pay attention to your depth gauge. In fact, you always should pay close attention to your depth and your gas. But on this dive, it is absolutely critical that you pay close attention to both. Once you start diving up and down that structure, 20 feet feels like 50 feet, that feels like 100 feet, that feels like 300 feet.
In a place like this, it's easy to get excited about seeing the big stuff. But as you swim through this environment, what most people don't realize is that you're getting stared back at by thousands of eyes. Eyes that belong to tiny little magnificent creatures. These are creatures that you could easily pass right over unless you lean in and take a closer look. But we'll return to the little stuff later, because this place is home to some very large horse-eyed jacks. And they seem to be swimming my way. This is a man-made steel structure, and I find it ironic that some of the most colorful things I've seen on this trip are right here underneath this platform. These colorful Spanish hogfish seem to be caught up in some sort of feeding frenzy. But what caught my eye was a splash of bright orange color that I could see off in the distance. This is known as orange cup coral. It comes from Indonesia, but it's growing right here in the Gulf of Mexico. This coral is an invader. This is what you would consider a beautiful but harmful invasion. This is a non-photosynthetic coral, which means they don't need sunlight to grow. They actually feed themselves through filter feeding. And they're growing right here in the shade of this oil rig, taking up valuable substrate that would normally be occupied by other native species. But with that said, they're stunning to look at. Now let's get back to the small stuff. Our next dive is going to be back on the flower garden banks, and it's going to be a night dive. And at nighttime, you see a whole variety of creatures that you wouldn't normally see during the daytime. But we're going to save that one for the next video. So be sure to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss that content. And also, if you're interested in purchasing prints from this location or any other place that I've explored, I want to remind you to visit my website at scottbauerphotography.art. See you on the next video. Thanks for watching.
So that went long.
That was cool, Scott.
Yeah, very
That was
good.
cool.
Very nice.
Yeah, it goes back to the thing to where you do voiceovers, and I just can't, like, I don't know. I feel like I want to re-record that last part.
You did a good
What
job.
was that? What did you have in that clear plastic off of the left top of your house?
That's a 360 camera, and it does like a 1 second. So it has this dome that you put it in. When you take it underwater, you have to correct the angle so everything meets. It's basically two cameras facing in an opposite direction, and you have a seam in the center, and it works just fine when you're topside. But when you go underwater, because of refraction, they don't meet up properly. So you have to put in this housing. It's basically two dome ports facing away from each other, and it corrects that.
Did you use any of those in your film?
You know, I didn't use a whole lot. I used one shot. I used one shot from it. I would like to. It doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't look that good. It's from a company called Instant 360, and the quality just isn't really there. And just kind of trying it out.
Okay.
It looks great above the water. Once you get deeper though, and the light isn't as bright, it starts to get really grainy pretty fast. Kind of like an older GoPro is what it looks like.
Why don't you show people your gear?
Yeah, sure.
Talk a little bit about it.
What's your GoPro? What is your drone?
That is the Mavic Air 2.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in my opinion, I think this is the best bang for your buck. It's around like $900, and I feel like the quality is pretty good on it.
Craig, that's what you have also, isn't it, Craig?
Mavic 2 Pro.
Right, that's what he had.
I don't know. Is it a Pro or a Zoom?
No, so the Mavic 2 Pro, yeah, so that's a step up from the Mavic Air 2. The names are kind of confusing, but with the Mavic 2 Pro, you can control the f-stop. Yeah, and it has the 1-inch sensor. I think like a Hasselblad camera on it.
That was my to buy. This is the only Hasselblad I would ever have.
Yeah, exactly right.
Kay wants me to get a drone. So. Hey.
Oh, you should always get a drone. I think it does a lot to tie together different sequences.
Do you know why she wants me to get a drone? So I can check the gutters of the house.
Haven't you seen those commercials? You should just get those gutter cover things.
With a stick, right.
They don't want old people up on ladders.
I'm not going to argue. I'll get a drone.
We took my daughter's drone to Iceland a couple of weeks ago, and Sue was the drone pilot. She was practicing for like a month. She crashed it and lost it.
Oh no!
And it was, I think, a Mavic Air 2 is what it was.
Well, do y'all have the goggles, or do you look at your phone?
No, yeah, just my phone.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Scott, I really liked your photos, but I tell you what, I've gone out on a boat one time in the Philippines and flown it, and I got it back that time, and it's like, okay, no, I'm not sure I can do this again,
So me and my friend that was with me on that trip also had a drone as well, and we were both flying just as much. I think we each went through 3 batteries, and each time we landed, it was just an absolute circus, So one of us had to try to catch it as the boat's moving up and down 3 feet, and you're worried about it, going to the side or hitting somebody. It was a nightmare.
I had it on one of those Fenici boats in the Philippines, And there was no place to land the damn thing. I figured out after I launched it, you know.
Yeah.
The little point that kind of goes out on them that had about a 2-foot square place that I could land it. And I got it back there, and I got it like where I thought it was supposed to be. And it's just like, okay, down, baby.
Yeah, just don't hit the return to home button.
Did you
Yeah,
lose
but
it, Kurt?
GPS isn't that is not that accurate, because you know what happened was I got it down, but like 3 legs and 1 leg was off the thing. You know?
Oh wow. Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, it's scary.
Ooh.
Especially when you're talking $1,000 if you hit the drink with it. You know, that's
Yeah.
Kind of like those underwater cameras, aren't they?
Not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
But they don't run away from you. You know, the
No. But you can drop them though.
All right, Scott, what you got? You're gonna show us.
All right, so this is a brand called Sea Frogs. If you're looking for an inexpensive way to take one of your cameras underwater, I've had virtually no issues with it other than what you saw in the video, the shutter button getting stuck, and that was easily fixed by just adding some silicone grease to that button. But it's basically, it has all the port systems you need for really any lens. They make housings for really any mainstream camera that exists. I would say this whole rig was $700. So it's gotten me through 200 dives now, probably more than 200 dives. And it's, I think I'm kind of pushing it now. I don't know, but it's definitely putting some work. And the lighting that I've been using are these cheap Amazon lights. I paid maybe $70 for each one. I think it's a 120-degree beam. Not really sure yet. I mean, Dennis and I were talking about that earlier. You could look it up on Amazon though. They do have the specs of the spread of the beam. It's a very evenly, spread wide beam. I don't think they're the greatest, but they definitely it's something you can get if you want to get started. I only use these lights as kind of like a filler. They don't really I don't think my photographs are really dependent on them at all. But I do feel like they add a little bit to the photograph. I take photos with constant light. I don't use strobes. And I would say, that's pretty much it. It's a very budget rig. I have a Sony A6400. That's what I take underwater. Topside, I shoot an A7 III. And I'm going to probably get one of these housings for that A7 III as well. And just make sure I get a vacuum pump.
You go down with two. You go down with 2 GoPros, one on your helmet and one on your camera.
Yeah, I have one on my camera, usually facing towards me or away from me. And then I have another GoPro on my forehead attached to my dive mask. And I really like that third person view or first person view of getting the shot in.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I like the way you tie together the drone, the topside footage on the boat, the underwater stuff, and the images of you or you're shooting. It was all nicely tied together, I thought.
Thank you. Yeah, the hardest thing for me is the voiceovers. It's just, that's one of the hardest things to get comfortable with, I feel like. And I don't really think there is a point to where I'll ever be comfortable with it. But I do feel more comfortable than I did in the past, though. I feel like it has come a long way.
But your style is very Jeff Corwin. I like it.
You do have a pleasant voice, though.
Yeah, you do have a good radio voice.
The earlier videos, you could definitely tell a difference. And I had lower quality microphones too on the earlier videos, and I think some of them actually are kind of hard to listen to. But that's part of the process.
Well, I think you're so personable that it helps us get to know more of who you are as you're describing what you're living through with the adventure. I thought it was great.
I think it's a very important part to have something like that, some sort of element like that, instead of just music and footage. And I think that's a good point, because if you just cutting footage that you shot to music, you don't have, there's no connection, especially if you're putting it on YouTube and you want people to watch it. You want people to have some sort of, you want people to be able to have the attention span to get through the video. And
I don't think we're going to have time to be able to show your treasure hunting videos.
Yeah.
Because we have a photo contest to get through before probably around 9 o'clock. But
Sounds
if
good.
you can
Well,
go
sorry
to
if I went
dive
over
book-
time too. I feel like
No,
Okay.
it was great what you did, and that you did exactly what I was hoping you would do, is to introduce us to the waters of Texas and let us know who you are. And it'll be interesting to watch you as your career arc underwater gains momentum. I think that you've got a bright future if you keep after it.
You know, he ought to get in touch with Jesse about the Texas stuff.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's
yeah,
done that one trip with Jesse.
Yeah,
Oh,
I've met him, and it's funny because I was reading his book before I went on that trip. I saw his book in some outdoor store here in Austin, and there's a coral reef that I always was really interested in seeing, and that I couldn't find any information on. And he has a book where he describes Scorpion Reef off the coast of the Yucatan Peninsula. And that's and then I saw him on that trip, and I was a little starstruck, I guess.
Yeah, well, he's up in Cape May right now in New Jersey. Okay, any more questions for Scott before we turn it over to Martin in the photo contest?
No, but
Good
it is
job.
great. Yeah. Good.
Scott,
Really
thanks
good.
so much. Perfect.
Yeah, it was fun. I appreciate everybody watching.
Well,
We'll look forward to seeing some more of your videos for the film festival.
Yeah, you got to
Really
put
would
it
hope.
together for the festival.
yeah, and remember, I'm gonna send you asking for some clips for January.
Yeah.
For the January meeting. All right, Martin, are you out there? Martin?
Yep, I'm here. I
Okay.
was muted. Okay, let me get it going here.
I make a comment about the photo contest this time. The advanced group really knocked it out of the park this time. I really like their stuff.
Okay, hang on just a second. Share screen. Share. Okay. That's it.
Well, congratulations to all the winners. There's some tight races there, it looks like, for the photographer of the year in a couple of the classes. So that'll be interesting. See how the end of the year turns out. Thanks, Martin, for putting that together.
Hey, Russell, thanks for the wine this time, Russell.
Hey, Tom, I don't know what's up with your camera, but you're really blurry. Maybe that's a good thing. I don't know.
That's why the majority of my photos are. You know?
No, his camera's fine. It's the problem is Tom.
It's just Tom blurry. Yeah, for some reason you look out of focus or something. I don't know. It's really weird.
That's all right, Tom. I was out of focus last time.
I can see you just fine.
That was last month.
All right. Well, it's nice to see everybody, including you out of town people.
How was Iceland?
Iceland was good. It was drizzly, which is typical Iceland weather, but we had a good time. I don't know how many waterfalls we saw, but I'm sure probably around 1,000 waterfalls or something crazy. They're everywhere.
Is that where they have all the volcanoes?
Well, they've had a volcano erupting fairly recently. We went there and there was just a big lava lake. You know, it's already solidified on top, but it's still steaming and stuff. It's hot underneath. But we walked all around that area and stuff. But it was good.
I'd like to
You've
say-
done your Walter Mitty thing now.
Yeah, that was our second trip. So Sue's ready to go back again.
I really enjoyed Scott's thing on Texas rivers. Well, that was very, very interesting.
That's good.
We don't realize they're out there.
Yeah, I've dove and snorkeled a lot in the San Marcos River. Back in the day, I would go there frequently during the winter time because there's no tubers or swimmers in the winter, but you're wearing a wetsuit. The temperature of the water is the same all year round.
But
And
what's
so-
that place way out west Texas, like Edward Plateaus? Yes.
Balmaray Springs. Yeah, I've been there.
Oh yeah, I actually haven't been there.
I never dove it. I've only snorkeled there, but I stop every time I do a road trip out west. That's one of our picnic stops or whatever. We'll stop there and take a dip. It's pretty. It's nice.
Is Balmaray open right now?
I think it reopened. It was closed for quite a while because they were redoing
It reopened, then it closed agagan, and then I
Really?
think it reopened again. Yeah.
When I was going through in July, it was open because I looked up.
Okay.
Yeah, we decided not to stop, but it was open.
Is it big enough to be worth the trip out there, do you think?
Oh yeah,
Um,
it's a neat place, but
Really?
but it's like for one dive.
Yeah.
Well, Scott, have you ever looked at any of the rock quarries in East Texas?
No, I haven't. I've done Blue Lagoon, but you know the viz is like 3 feet there.
Up in Northeast Texas, there's some rock quarries.
I didn't know that.
The best part about the Blue Lagoon is going with all your jewelry on to clean your jewelry.
Does it do that?
Really?
Yeah, because of the limestone. Absolutely.
It's real limey water, huh?
Well, it's a limestone quarry.
Yeah.
We used to go to a quarry outside of Denton when I was up there, and I don't think it would be good for diving. I wasn't diving then, but it was really green water with all the limestone in it. So.
You know, Canyon Lake, I think Canyon Lake is the most underrated lake for scuba diving in Texas.
I've done it a time or two.
Yeah.
My first dive experience ever is Canyon Lake. Yeah.
Well, you know, in the last 2 or 3 years, the viz has gotten a lot better too because of the zebra mussels. So now, if you haven't seen it in the last few years, definitely make a trip.
Because of the what?
Zebra mussels.
Mussels.
Zebra.
Yeah, little freshwater clams. They filter feed.
Invasive.
The water clear.
Invasive
go steer 'em?
mussels. They've been trying to get rid of now for a good while.
Oh yeah.
Scott, I saw your video that you posted of
the forest.
Diving through the trees. It was
Yeah,
really
yeah.
spooky.
Yeah, we call that spooky forest, and there's another area that's even more interesting than that because it's a mixture of like limestone walls and cave or grotto kind of caves that go into the wall, and then you have the forest right beside that limestone wall. It's a really cool spot.
And can you harvest those mussels and we can have a really nice barbecue on the beach?
They're tiny.
They're finger foods, you know.
Well, not if you
Next
get 1,000
month.
of them.
Next month, I've been working a little bit with Justin Wallace. If everything works out, we're going to have his show diving the Maldives. I've seen what he has. He's got really good content. Now it just has to be pulled together into a nice film. If it doesn't work out, I'll put him on next year when he can get it pulled out, and we'll do a Palau and Yap HUPS shootout that I've got prepared for it. So one way or the other. I think you've seen it probably, haven't you? Okay. That's all I
All
had.
right, well, thanks, everybody.
Okay,
Thank
see everybody
you.
next month.
All
Thanks
right, y'all be
for
careful.
looking.
Stay
Thanks so
dry. Stay
much.
dry.
Yeah.
Have a
And
good one.
again, thank you very much.
All right, good night,
Good
everybody.
night, everyone.
Good night.